So there is, you may have heard, and those of you that have spoken to Alyssa in the last few days, that there is a 50% wage subsidy opportunity right now. This is not the short-term COVID relief. This is separate from that and additional to that. So you can effectively double dip, if you want to call it that. We're going to talk about who's eligible, the conditions and the exclusions, excuse me. And we're also going to talk about what the other funding that unlocks for you, because once you get that, then it opens up possibilities for some additional funding. I should have apologized. I'm at home, I'm a trachea dex, my cat is in the background. I'm sure I'm not the only one working from home right now. But so we won't be talking about this short-term COVID relief. That's a separate issue. This thing has been around for a few months. It just hasn't been very well publicised. Why are we doing it? Just quickly. So it's our area of expertise. My background is I've owned a couple of restaurants. I had a resort at Noosa once. That probably wasn't my smartest idea. But I've also been in the training industry, and this wage subsidy is linked to courses. So when we saw this come up, I thought it was a perfect opportunity for our consulting company to actually give advice about it. We're claiming it ourselves. I have all my employees on this wage subsidy. At the end of the session, you've got a couple of options. You can get us to help you set it up, and we'll show you how you can do that at no risk, because obviously nobody's really wanting to pay out any money at the moment unless they know they're going to get more back. Or hopefully I'll give you enough information here that if you want to do it yourself, you can just do it yourself. One of the things that's been driving me to put together a few of these education sessions is that big companies have been claiming all this money as usual, and part of that is because they've got the resources and know the system works. So I just want to make sure that we level that playing field a little bit if we possibly can. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background to this. Would have been late 2020, JobKeeper was coming to an end, and for most people in tourism and hospitality, sadly, ended up being eligible for JobKeeper. There were some flaws in that though, and particularly, like, I had friends with restaurants, and one of the really challenging things, and I'm sure you will have been there if you are in the restaurant area, is that business of having to pay a minimum amount. So you might have had a ton of young people working for you 1 or 2 shifts a week. To put them on JobKeeper, you had to pay them all the full price, and there was that really painful part at the very beginning where you had to pay everybody and wait for 6 weeks to be sure that you're actually going to get JobKeeper from the government, and that was pretty nerve-wracking for a lot of people. Another of the flaws, of course, is that people got paid for not working, and there was really no value added. I mean, having said all that, it kept a lot of businesses alive, and it was a great idea, but it could have been improved. So beginning of October, the federal government introduced this wage subsidy for 100,000 training places. They budgeted $2.8 billion for it. That's billion with a B. Now, these are for training places, but this is really important. It's for training, not tradesmen. So it's not just for tradies. And there was a big misconception that it was only about, because it was called boosting apprenticeship commencements. You've probably heard that, but don't let that give you preconceived ideas, because I'll show you how you can use it in ways that you're probably not expecting. So people thought because it said apprenticeships that it was only for tradies. They thought because it said commencements that it was about, hiring young people, new starters and things. But you can get this for some existing workers as well, and I'll explain that to you how that works. So unfortunately, as typically happens with these kinds of things, 70,000 of those 100,000 places were taken up by big companies in the first month. So all these big companies just went, right, we're going to put all our employees on this program. We'll train them in something. It's kind of like, for those of you that are old enough to remember, it's like the traineeship stuff 20 years ago. So then, end of October, within 3 weeks almost, the government tightened up the criteria for existing workers and said, hang on, you can't just put every random person on. We are going to put some restrictions on it. And this might be where we can help you, because we understand how the restrictions work and we understand how you can increase your chances of being eligible. Even with that, there are 130,000 places used up by May this year. So when the federal budget came out, they uncapped it, because that has been one of the biggest contributors to, all the stuff you see on the news about the economy is growing and jobs are being taken up, things. A lot of this is why. It's because people have cottoned on that they can actually get half the wages paid for staff. So they made 170,000 more places available, an extra 2.7 billion. They've said it's uncapped, but I don't know what's going to happen when they reach the 170,000 places. I heard about 6 or 8 weeks ago that they're sitting at about 130,000 of those places had already gone. So time will tell. Hopefully they'll keep it going. But they've also extended the deadline for you to get someone started on this until March next year. So one of the things for you to think about when we're talking today is, if you are going to hire anybody between now and March, bear in mind this framework and try and hire within this framework, and it might just help you get a wage subsidy. And this wage subsidy, the other thing to think about, this is separate from, how you can get 10,000 or 20,000 if you hire somebody who's been unemployed or something. This is a separate subsidy. You can hire a professional, you can hire a chef, you can hire a manager, you can hire anybody under this subsidy. So let me explain what it is. As I said, it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. Do not be misled by the title, and do not be misled by apprenticeship centres who have told you that you are not eligible, because the apprenticeship centres, I was talking to one the other day, they had 100 new staff starting that week. They have grown so fast because they have been appointed to administer this scheme that, unfortunately, there are a lot of people in them who have limited experience and may be giving you the wrong advice. And I've talked to a lot of people who've been told that they're not eligible. And when we've shown them how to put the right codes on the right forms, they've been approved. So whoever's told you that you can't do it, pop that aside if you would like, if you can, for the next 20 minutes, and I might be able to show you that you can. So official rules say this wage subsidy allows a business, a charity, or a council. So you don't have to be a proprietary limited company, but you can be reimbursed up to 50% of the wages for a person that you enroll in an approved course. And I will tell you what those courses are shortly, up to a maximum of 28,000. So it's paid over 12 months and it's capped at $7,000 a quarter. So if you've got part-time staff, they are potentially still eligible. I'll show you how, but obviously you'll only get half what you pay them. So if you're not paying them $14,000 a quarter, you won't get 7 back. You'll just get half of what you've paid them. Now, it applies to new workers, and I will tell you what the definition is of a new worker, and it also applies to some existing employees. So the key condition for it is that they have to enroll in an eligible course, which I'll show you what that is. Feel free to put any questions in as we're going, because I know people have lots of, if you know about this already, you might have some misinformation. If you don't know about it, it's a lot to take in. Okay, here's this little bit of paper from the government that came out with the budget that said what it is, the 2.7 billion. But what's interesting is it says, it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements, but you'll see in the second paragraph from the bottom, it says to take on new apprentices and trainees. Now, most people misunderstand trainees to be, as it sounds, some new person who needs training, doesn't know anything. But you can put, under the scheme, you can put a trainee on to do a diploma. So they can do a business diploma or an HR diploma or a safety diploma or a whole lot of other things, which I'll show you. And they could be somebody who's got a whole lot of work experience already. They could do that diploma online. So it's not trainees in the way, especially in tourism and hospitality, we tend to think of trainees as being kids, but this is not just for kids. It's pretty much a win-win for, for government. Obviously, it helps them because it improves the unemployment numbers. For the economy, same thing. For employers, it means if you can have most of your staff at half price for the next 12 months, that has got to help your business, especially in these kind of unstable, insane times. And it's a win for the employees because employees get a bit more job security and they come out of it with some more skills and qualifications, which is something that our country desperately needs right now. So who's eligible? As I said, any employer, if you're a business, you're an organisation, you're a council, you're a charity, even if you're trading under your own name and you've got staff reporting to you, as long as you have employees, then you are eligible. Unless you're a state government department or a federal government department, then you're not eligible. Anywhere in Australia, it's Australia-wide, any type of industry, any business size. Sole trader, you can't do it because you have to have somebody to supervise the trainee. So if you've got one single employee, yes, they would probably be eligible. Any full-time staff and any part-time staff, actually, I need to update that slide because it's full-timers and part-timers, and I'll explain to you in a moment what happens with casuals because there's an opportunity there as well. Australian citizens, New Zealand citizens who have been here for 6 months or more, you might be able to tell by the sophisticated way that I pronounce my vowels that I'm not originally from here. Those of us that have been here more than 6 months, we are eligible. And also a lot of other visas, so permanent residency, but there's also things like partner visas, depends on the state. And if you've got a specific example, run it by me and I'll be able to tell you. Generally, if the person is allowed to work and has a visa that allows them to stay indefinitely, then you can probably get a subsidy for them. So this is quite a bit broader than JobKeeper because there were some significant gaps in JobKeeper in terms of where people were from, and those gaps have been largely addressed. And it also includes your professionals and your experienced staff. So it can include your chef, that sort of person. You just have to persuade them to do another course. But we can talk about that in a moment. Right. So what does it mean for you? In terms of dollars, I just had to do this quick calculation, couldn't help myself. If you can find 5 people to put on this program, then over the next 12 months, you will get 100, and they're all earning a minimum of 56,000 a year. So that was if it's 5 full-timers. Then you'll end up with another $140,000 in your pocket. But you can just put one on if you've just got one person as well. Now, worst case scenario, if you had to pay full fees for the course, which we will show you a lot of ways that you may not have to, you may be able to get a free or a subsidized course. But worst case, you have to pay full fees for the course, you're still going to end up with well over $100,000 in your pocket for those 5 people. Plus, if you've ever hired apprentices before, you'll know the same rules apply for normal apprentices. So you'll get payroll tax rebates, work cover rebates in a lot of states. Depending on where you are, if you're in regional Queensland and you hire someone under 25, then you'll probably get another $20,000 on top of the 28. If you hire somebody for the first few trainees that you put on in Queensland, you get an extra 20,000 if they meet certain criteria. Like they might have had to have been not working for 4 weeks or something, but the criteria is not that hard at the moment to meet. If you put someone on who doesn't have a previous qualification, then you'll get another 4,000. So there's like money being thrown at this all over the place. And if you've got a specific example, we can take you through and show you what you can get. Now, here are some interesting statistics on the claims so far, though. 60% of the employees so far who've been signed up for this wage subsidy are not in traditional trades, which just reinforces this thing that is not just for plumbers. In fact, it's not primarily for plumbers. 40% of them are working for small businesses, and 20% of them have been for employees that are over 35 years old. And I just had a look at the list to see who's been taking it up the fastest, and it's construction, of course, because they know how to work this kind of system, accommodation, which I thought was interesting, and manufacturing. I don't have to talk to you guys about skills shortages. I know you know what it's like right now. I had a look the other day on Seek to see how many jobs were being advertised. I looked this time last year, or maybe it was May last year, and there were about 30,000 jobs being advertised. There's now 184,000. And what really shocked me is that 54,000 of those were paying over $100,000 a year. So if you are hiring right now, getting this additional $28,000 from the federal government might just help you pay a little bit more to that person as well, and give you the opportunity to actually get somebody that you may not have been able to get otherwise. So how do you know if you are eligible to get it for your existing employees? What I'll do is I'll explain to you existing employees, and then I'll explain to you new employees and how they work. So I'll give you the government's definition of an existing worker, and then I will give you a broader one. Here are the actual rules out of the policy. So it says that an existing worker can only get the wage subsidy where, first of all, they do a trade, and I'll explain to you what that list of trades, because there is a list that defines trades, and you would be surprised about what's on there. The second opportunity is if you take someone who is casual and you make them part-time or full-time, or you take someone part-time and you make them full-time, then you can get this subsidy. Now, excuse me, where this is really, really important to think about for hospitality particularly is that if you've got a bunch of casuals who you have working for you regularly, but you have them on notice, two things to think about. One is the industrial relations issues. Are they really casuals, which I can't advise you on, but I know plenty of people have been bitten by that. You know, you have a casual doing reasonably regular hours, and then they can come back later and hit you up for holiday pay and sick pay and all that, because the Fair Work will often deem that they were really part-time. For them to be genuinely casual, they've got to, it's like genuine contractors, they've got to meet some rules. The other thing to think about is that this definition of part-time in this legislation means that they have to do 60 hours over every 4 weeks. So they've got to average 15 hours a week, but you can average that out over 4 weeks. So as long as you've got some people who are doing 60 hours for you over every 4-week period, you could, if you wanted to, change their employment from casual to part-time, give them that 60 hours a month, basically, and get half of their wages reimbursed to you from the government for the next year. And if people come and go from now until March, when the scheme expires, once they're signed up, you get them for a whole year. But say you had someone who started now and then they left in January, you could replace them and then get it for another whole year for the new person. So there's a really good opportunity in there. If you're trying to keep your casuals, if you can get half the money that you pay them paid back for a year, that's got to help, surely. So all your casuals, all your part-timers potentially are eligible in that way. And it doesn't matter how long they've been casual or part-time with you for. It could be 20 years. It does not matter. In some states, if they've been casual or part-time for years and years, you might not be eligible for the course for free. You might have to pay for their course, but you're paying that out of the $28,000 wage subsidy. So you're still going to be well ahead anyway. Now, the other interesting thing, though, is they talk about in this first line where it says, they commence in a trades-based Australian apprenticeships. There is a list, it's a 13-page list called Appendix I of what the government defines as a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. And basically, it's a Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 that's supposed to be longer than 12 months, and that it leads to specific, what they call occupational outcomes. So it's basically the skills shortage list. So it's not necessarily just traditional trades like plumbers. There are things on there like Workplace Health and Safety Certificate 4, which I would imagine that a lot of us right now need to be training someone in that. Greyhound training, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But there are a number of things on there that would actually fit, especially on the more tourism side of tourism and hospitality. So you can take your casuals, you can take your part-timers, and you can have anybody that's willing to do one of these specifically defined approved Certificate 4s. That means all of those existing employees that meet one of those criteria are eligible. Here's just an example of the document that comes back once they're approved. This is a New South Wales one. This person was doing Certificate 4 in civil construction supervision, but this is the document that says this person is an existing worker there, and below that first black line on the left, it says existing worker trainee, and they've now been approved for the wage subsidy. So civil supervision is another of the courses that's allowed, but not relevant to you guys right now, of course. So we dug up a couple of examples of courses, general business courses that could still be eligible for your existing staff. So this could be your, excluding your kind of trade people, this could be your office staff. So if you've got someone who's responsible for health and safety, like I mentioned, they could do Certificate 4 in work health and safety. So these courses are straight out of this Appendix I, which is the approved list. Now, of course, we're dealing with government, so it might have changed by next week, but right now, today, you could put someone on that. If you've got someone who's an admin type person, you could put them on a Cert 4 in workplace health and safety and perhaps do a dual qualification with business if they wanted a business qual. If you've got an office manager, this is a funny one. There's a Certificate 4 in environmental sustainability, which is half environment, half business. It's actually quite a good course. And one of the occupations that is allowed to do that job is office managers. So if you've got anybody who's an office manager and they want to do a pretty interesting course in business and environment stuff online, you can get a wage subsidy for them, even if they've been working for you for 20 years. We've got pages and pages of tourism and hospitality examples. Thank you, Rachel, for putting those together. But we just picked out a few just to show you. So this is, again, if someone's permanent full-time with you and they're already in the job, if they've been there for less than 90 days, they still count as a new worker, and you've got an enormous range of courses that you can sign them up for and get the 50% wage subsidy. And you can backdate it to the 90 days in terms of them still being counted as new. So obviously, if you've got anyone in that category, do something pretty quickly before the 90 days runs out. Again, if you've taught your part-timers or casuals and you've upgraded them, there's a really long range of courses that they're eligible for. Now, most states have got funding for at least some of these courses. The thing to think in mind, though, is that for you to get a wage subsidy, there's 3 levels of approval needed, basically. First of all, the federal government needs to have said, we will accept this course for a wage subsidy. They've got a list. Then the state government has to have said, we will accept this course as a traineeship. They've got a separate list, and each state, of course, is different. And then the state government needs to have said what their funding policy is on that course. So some of them will be funded, fully funded, free. Some of them you pay something, some of them you pay full fees. The environmental course is only in some states. Part-time to full-time, I think I said before, is this bit of a strange one. Part-timers can have been there for years and years and you'll get the wage subsidy, but in New South Wales, you'd have to pay for the course. Some states have got different requirements for supervisors for different courses and things like that. Anyway, we can help you figure that out. We don't want to make it too complicated for this session. But basically, we should be able to look through most of your workers and figure out a good proportion of them that you can get a wage subsidy one way or another. Now, if you've just got one employee and it's a really simple one and you're about to put them on a chef's apprenticeship or something, then you don't need us, just go and do the normal thing. But if you've got a list that you thought weren't eligible, it might be worth us taking a look. So here's some more examples of courses that your new employees could potentially do. They could do a Cert 3 in business. They could do a leadership diploma or something if you've got someone in a supervision role. There's a really interesting Certificate 4 in entrepreneurship and new business, which you might find quite useful to have someone go through, you know, how to grow the business, how to do more marketing, that kind of stuff. Okay, let me just tell you then what you actually need to do if you want to do this yourselves. So process is, and this is our suggestion now, if anybody wants a copy of this presentation, we'll email it out to you. If you want to work your way through this list yourself, you are very welcome. So review which courses suit your business. So you're looking to say, what can we justify for our business? What's approved for our location? And regional has some different subsidies to central cities, and what occupational outcomes, to use the jargon, do we have that we can match courses to. Think about new staff that you want to take on or that you've taken on in the last 3 months, and this is also an opportunity to get some additional skills. If you can hire someone who's got 3/4 of what you need, you can perhaps fill the gap with a course. Consider which existing staff you'd like to offer this opportunity to. If you've got casuals that you really want to hang on to, then this might be the chance. Check the qualifications, match staff, check the supervision rules, because it will say, like if you're doing an apprentice electrician, for example, they have to have a supervisor with their eyeballs on them all day, every day, to make sure that they don't have a horrible accident. If you are doing a business trainee, then the supervision rules are much softer because, you know, it's not as risky. So check the supervision rules in relation to the course. Then check out the other incentives, because you might find, oh, if I put them through this program, I'll get an extra $20,000 here, but if I do this one, I'll miss that. So look at the state-based incentives as well, and incentives per employee. So some people will come with more money because of their particular characteristics. Find a registered training organisation. I said I used to run one, and we do some consultancy for a few, so I can tell you, probably depending on what your needs are, I can tell you who's going to actually give really good quality training, who's going to be fast and tick and flick, you know, whatever it is that you might be looking for, hopefully the quality, but you know, sometimes. And then check that they've got funding for the courses. Choose what they're currently calling an Australian Apprenticeship Support Network, an ASS, and that's the agencies that are funded by the government to sign these up. So if you would have had any trainees or apprentices in the past, you would have used them, and they are being used to roll this scheme out. Just know that when you're choosing one, some of them don't understand this side of it as well. Some of them are fantastic, but some of their staff are a bit new, and we've had a few people come to us and saying, can you help fix this? We got rejected, and we've managed to get them unrejected. Then you just organise a sign up with your employer, your ASIN and your RTO, and then you lodge your wage claim, and then you make sure you lodge your claims for the other incentives, which are separate from your wage claim. Now, we can help with most of the above, or if you want us to, or you can give it a go and give us a call. Now, the easy bit is claiming the wage subsidy. Once you've been through all that stuff on the previous page, that's the time-consuming part. The process of claiming the wage subsidy is actually really simple and straightforward. If you have claimed JobKeeper before, then you will understand basically the process. It's not that different. You get registered at the end of each quarter. You're going to be sent a reminder by text and email that comes from the ASIN. You complete an online form and you upload the pay slips. So you basically say, yes, this person still works here and here are their pay slips for the last quarter. And then within a couple of weeks of that, you'll get the money into your bank account. And it's defined quarters, whereas JobKeeper was monthly, I think. This is every financial quarter. So what are we now? August. Anybody that you put on now, you will get sent a link at the end of September to say, give us the pay slips from anybody for July, August, September. And then you'll get half of that money back in middle of October. And yes, we have done it. We're doing it. Process works. You do end up with money in your bank account. It is actually quite nice. Now, a couple of questions that keep coming up. What if my employees don't finish their qualification, don't pass, something like that, even though they tried? This is a bit interesting. You still get paid. You get a wage subsidy whether they pass their subjects or not, as long as they are still chipping away at it, because they have to be participating in the training for you to continue to get the wage subsidy, or the training provider can pull the plug and then you lose your subsidy. But there is no rule that says they have to do a certain amount in a certain time. And in fact, you actually want them to go reasonably slowly, because when they finish the course, your subsidy finishes as well. So you are actually better off if they take their time, but they do still need to be doing it. But if they have to have a couple of goes at something, that's fine. You don't have to pay anything back. If they leave halfway through, you don't have to pay anything back. You just get paid up until the date they go. And then the other part of it, people ask is this going to be, I'm really busy, is this going to be time consuming? So no, the training provider will deliver the training. And these days I would definitely go for somebody who's doing as much of it online as possible. But online doesn't have to mean, you know, some person sitting there waiting their way through PDFs. It could be online and live and still interesting. And some of the RTOs that we work with do some really interesting, good quality delivery, you know, remotely. You just need somebody on site who can actually go, yep, that person is now competent at that. So if there's a business unit about running meetings, for example, you just need to let your person run a meeting, and then their supervisor signs off and says, yes, they did it. So it's just the practical stuff, like for any other kind of apprenticeship. Okay, so if you get us to help, there's something that we wanted to put together to make sure that there's no risk. I've talked to so many restaurants, tourism businesses lately who are like, we can't pay any money. So totally get that. So what we have come up with is that if you do want us to help, then you just don't pay us anything until you get approved. And in fact, you don't pay us anything until you get your first money from the government, because I understand, I've been in small business, I understand cash flow can be a challenge. So if you can't pay till you get your first quarter, then that's fine. Some things just to think about, that this bureaucracy is probably not your core business. Most businesses that I talk to, you're busy either because business is booming or because busting, but either way, there's not much in between at the moment, is there? Either way, it's kind of crazy busy for everybody. Now, you are welcome to do this yourself, and I mean that sincerely. I do keep running into people, though, whose applications have been rejected because they coded, because you've got to put right codes in the right places, and they coded them wrong, or they were given bad advice about how to lodge their claim, especially for existing workers. Their apprenticeship centre said, no, you're not allowed to do it, because they weren't able to explain how the course related to the job, that sort of thing. So what I would suggest that you do is get us to do all the setup, like your accountant would have done for JobKeeper for you if you're eligible. We set it up for you, we get it organised, we find you all the grants, we match your people to courses and things like that, do all the analysis. If we set it up, then once a quarter, you just have to upload your pay slips. That bit you have to do. But you can carry on with your core business. And then when the first grant money hits your account, you just forward 10% of the amount that you've been approved for to us. You keep the rest, and you just carry on doing what you do best, which presumably is not managing bureaucracy. So where to from here? The first step is for us to do a quick assessment of your eligibility. We can send you a form to give us the information that we need. It's just a bit of information about your employees, who they are, what they do. And then we can interview, or if you don't want to do a form, we can interview you over the phone and gather the information, whatever's easier for you, we don't mind. After that, then you can decide whether to proceed and do it yourself or whether to get us to help. So once we've done that step, if it's a really simple one, we'll tell you. And if you've got the time, you can just do it yourself. If it's more complex and we know that we'll be able to get you more money than you could get for yourself, then we will tell you that as well. Now, if you want to email us, we will call you because we're working from home at the moment. I've got Alyssa's email on there. Alyssa, do you want to pop your phone number into the chat? I didn't put it on a slide because it's just your mobile, but if you want to pop it in the chat, that would be awesome, and I will read it out to people. We've got one question here, which I'll come back to and answer in a moment. If anyone else has got any questions, please pop them in. Otherwise, I'll answer this question while Alyssa is putting her phone number into the chat, and I will just check the Q&A. Oh, thanks, Alyssa. So Alyssa's phone number, if anyone wants to give her a call, is 0451 733 418. And I will just answer this one question that's in here, and then if anyone's got any more, I'll do them. Alyssa said feel free to call her. So how much time a week goes into the study? Someone has asked Alyssa to ask me. It depends what course you're doing. What I would do is I would choose an RTO, a training provider, who will allow the course to be practical work-based stuff, so that you're obliged, when it's a traineeship, you are obliged to give people time during their work time to do it. It could be a couple of hours a week. But make sure that you choose a training provider where the activities and the assessments that they're doing are real things in your real workplace. So, if it's a workplace health and safety certificate 4, for example, and one of the units is that you've got to identify safety risks, then you would get them to do that in your business. So the more you can choose a training provider that's going to give you something that's integrated into your workplace, then the less time that you actually are going to lose out of the workplace. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you found that useful. I would suggest do the pre-assessment. We can tell you if you qualify, then you can decide whether you want to go with us, whether you want to do it yourself, what you want to do. Would really, really like to help at the moment. I'm tired of hearing the word pivot or crazy times, so I won't say any of those things, but it is very challenging for people right now, isn't it? And we get it. And if we can do a little bit to get a bit more of government money into your pockets instead of the big companies, then we would absolutely love to do that. So all the best for everybody. Have a great day. Message us, email Alyssa, give her a call, and we will do whatever we can to help you with this. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.